0.
Okay, so a bunch of people have asked me about making dough by hand, which I love to do. But it can be kind of intimidating for a lot of people. So here's what I do. First off, a couple of indispensable tools. Kitchen scale. If you don't have one, it makes it so much easier to measure butter. This recipe, which is Mark Bittman's basic tart crust, which comes from his How to Cook Everything book, which is great. This is my go-to recipe for pretty much any kind of tart that I make. The butter needs to be very cold. I measure it first and then I put it in the freezer while I get everything else ready. You'll see my scale is at 0. I need 5 ounces, which is 10 tablespoons. And then you're going to cut it up into small pieces. The recipe says something like 12 pieces, but I do smaller than that. It just makes it easier. And this will go in the freezer while I get everything else ready. So the recipe also calls for 2 egg yolks, which should also be cold as well. So I'm going to separate those out. If you get a little bit of white inside, it doesn't matter. Both of those go in the refrigerator. So I need 1.5 cups of regular flour. So this is a 1/2 cup measure. Normally this recipe will call for 2 tablespoons of white sugar to be added at this point, but I'm making a savory dough right now, so I'm skipping that. Otherwise the recipe is identical. Pinch of salt. And my hands are clean, by the way, in case anybody's wondering. Now you can do this recipe with a food processor, but it's more fun to do it by hand. So this is how I do it. So you throw your butter in, and then you just start working it by hand. You're kind of pinching the butter pieces and trying to incorporate them. It'll take a little while. And you definitely want the butter to be as cold as possible, even though technically it makes it more difficult to work with. So we're almost at the point where I'm ready to add the egg yolks. There are still some relatively large chunks of butter, but that's okay. That just makes it more flaky. But this is the rough cornmeal is kind of the consistency you're looking for. Add the egg yolks, and I try to kind of, before I touch them with my hands, try to get them to work in by themselves by tossing it around, just because otherwise it gets your hands really, really messy. And you can see the dough is starting to come together and the eggs incorporated. Ice cold water, please. So the recipe calls for up to 3 or more tablespoons of ice cold water to add. I find I never ever need that much. So I add basically 1 at a time. And all you want to do is basically bring the dough together. So sprinkle that on top.
Okay. I didn't sprinkle.
You didn't, it's okay. Okay, so it's starting to come together. Let's start with a 1/2 tablespoon more.
Sprinkling?
Yeah, just a little bit. Okay, that's good. If If you add too much water, it ends up sticky, and then you need to, which you can fix it, you just would need to add some more flour. And I think I might need to do that, actually.
Flour back.
Yes, please. So it feels just a little bit too sticky right now. You need it a little bit drier. So just sprinkle a little bit on top. Okay, just work that in. I think that should probably do it. Yeah, that feels good. So you form it into a ball.
And what does it feel like? Does it feel like plasticine or hard plasticine or clay or what?
Kind of like plasticine, I guess, but it is coming together as a solid piece of dough. So try to get it into a nice flat disc. That'll make it easier rolling later. And it up. Hope the cats aren't destroying the living room. And then you throw it in the fridge for at least a half an hour. You can freeze it for a couple of months too. In that case, I'd double wrap it. So make sure you throw lots of flour. Oh, we need the pastry brush. And I mentioned a couple of indispensable tools. I love this rolling pin, way better than any of the ones with the usual pins. I don't know why, it just works way better. One of those. Thank you. I probably got that at a dollar store. And you just want to start in the center and start rolling back and forth, rotating. I use a pastry brush to brush off excess flour. Brush it away from you, otherwise you're just flinging flour on yourself. Oh. I also need a tart shell, the pan. And you want to keep rotating frequently and flipping it over as much as you can.
And how much force are you putting on there?
A fair bit right now because it's still a little bit cold. But it will definitely get easier as I work with it. And right there you can see a spot of butter that was a rather big chunk. Those are good because that means that'll be flaky. And so far this is rolling into a relatively decent circle. Usually when I make full-size tarts, it rolls into some sort of weird amoeba shape, and I have to do a whole bunch of repair work, but so far this is coming together sort of okay. Roughly 1/4 of an inch. I might be able to flip it one more time. Keep your surface floured. There we go. And get rid of all this because it'll just dry it out. Almost there. Yeah. we're ready to try to throw this into the pan. Okay, so this, I'm going to have to do some repair on this, I'm sure. Get rid of some of this. And you're going to want to do a quick transfer into the pan. That actually came together really well. And then you're going to want to press it into the pan against the sides. Of the pan. And I usually convert pie fillings into tarts just because I think tarts look nicer. But if you're making pie dough by hand, similar technique. Okay.
There's a bit of a hole there.
Yeah, I'm gonna fix that.
Cool.
Don't you worry.
Oh,
And then you're just gonna wanna take your paring knife and you wanna make sure that it kinda has room to cling. You don't want your tart crust to shrink while it's baking. You can see, yes, there's a place where I need to do a little bit of repair. That's fine. And this can be used for other tarts. So I always kind of try to do it down when I'm cutting it because you want to give it as much room to cling as possible. All the scraps together, get some of the flour. And there's a couple little spots where I have to do some repair. What I need is a little bit of water. And how you do that is you just patch it in with a little bit of water. And just kind of press it in to seal it. And I'm lucky there were only a couple of spots. Usually when I try to make a full-size tart, the rule is it never rolls into a perfect sphere and I have to do all kinds of damage control. If I'm making mini tarts where it doesn't matter, it always rolls perfectly round. So this worked out well. But the nice thing to know is you can always fix it. So just use a little water to seal it in a little bit. That's all. Okay. And there's a lot left over, so I'll probably make a couple mini something or other. I don't know. Just make sure that this is all kind of pressed up. And now it goes back into the fridge for chilling for at least 30 minutes before final baking. And the reason you do that is the chilling stage helps prevent it from shrinking when you actually bake it.